Yo guys, welcome back to Kiesel News. To start today off, we have a poll from the British Academy for Film and Television Awards that lists the top 15, but I also found a list that's the top 20 video game characters to them, and it makes no fucking sense, so let's go over it. First, in 20th place, we have Nathan Drake from Uncharted, which I think is fair. Uncharted was pretty big. Then we have Kiryu from Yakuza, Ellie from The Last of Us, Cloud from Final Fantasy, Crash Bandicoot, all very solid choices. Even Ellie, despite her being the newest to that group. But in the midst of the names I named so far, in 18th place, we have the character from Baldur's Gate 3, A Star Song. Now, that makes zero sense to me. Baldur's Gate 3 just came out, and yes, it won Game of the Year. It's so critically acclaimed. But you can't say that a character from a game that just came out in the last year is in the top 20 iconic video game characters. Come on, man. Next, we have Snake from Metal Gear, which I don't know if he should be that high. I don't know if he's as popular as, like, Final Fantasy, but still a relatively good placement. Followed by Steve from Minecraft, who should definitely be a little bit higher. I mean, Minecraft is, like, one of the biggest games of all time, but I guess you could argue that Steve himself isn't that iconic, because he doesn't have a storyline or anything. Next, though, is Pikachu at 12. Fucking Pikachu. He should at least be number 2 or 3. Maybe because Pokemon extends so much outside of the game world and they were only focusing on games, but still, the games are huge as well. Pokemon's the largest grossing media franchise, I think higher than number 12 at least. Especially when they have the balls to put him directly below Arthur Morgan from Red Dead 2. Like, Red Dead 2 is a good looking game. I'm not shitting on Red Dead 2, but it's so new. How is he more iconic than Pikachu? Are you on crack? Then you have another Baldur's Gate 3 character. I didn't even realize that. What? At number 10. How? Then we kind of get back to normal with Kratos and Master Chief. Still don't think they should be above Pikachu, but they should have at least been in the top 10 for sure. Maybe even Master Chief in the top 5. And then you have Link, obviously. Pac-Man, definitely. Because people who don't know video games know Pac-Man. It's like Pikachu and Mario. Number 5 is Sackboy. I have no clue how. I think he's the most obscure character on this entire goddamn list. But I mean, I think it's better to have him than Baldur's Gate 3 characters. And we end off the list pretty normally with Sonic and Mario at number 4 and 2. But number 3, Agent 47 from Hitman. What's their reasoning there? Like, Hitman is a great series of games, but when I think of Hitman, I don't think of, like, the protagonist's story as the first thing, the most iconic thing of the game. And then number 1, Lara Croft from Tomb Raider. Now, we actually did get a reasoning for this, with one of the main standouts being how she was a main female lead in a video game, which was rare at the time, and I guess still is pretty rare, which is a fair point that she was basically one of the first female leads in video games, but I don't think she deserves number 1 spot for that. Maybe like top 10. Not number 1, especially when you're competing with people like Mario and Pikachu. The other big piece of news today was the announcement that Tales of the Jedi Season 2, coming May 4th, is actually going to be called Tales of the Empire, And instead of focusing on the Jedi, or specifically Dooku and Ahsoka, it's gonna focus on Barriss Offee from the Clone Wars and Morgan Elsbeth, who was only just introduced in the Ahsoka series as the person who wanted to find Thrawn. Now, I think these are pretty good choices for Tales of the Empire, especially Morgan Elsbeth, as there's a lot that we don't know about her backstory, and it's an opportunity to tie it into the Ahsoka series and everything going on now. So it's not just a disconnected random thing like Tales of the Jedi kind of was. I mean, you had the stories with Ahsoka, but other than that, it was just basically random stories about Dooku that didn't tie into any of the other Mandoverse stuff that Dave was doing. Not that it has to, by any means. I love Tales of the Jedi. I think it was phenomenal. But I think it's great that we're getting more on Morgan Elsbeth, and not to mention Barriss Offee, who needs to get cleaned up. She's one of the biggest loose ends, I think, from the Clone Wars. So yeah, just great choices there, Dave. Especially since the other option would have just been Tales of the Jedi Season 2, which I honestly don't think we need. Like, I know people wanted to see a Plo Koon episode or a Ayla Secura episode, but to be honest, I think we know everything we need to know about them. They're about as interesting as you can make them without adding something weird to canon. So, I think this was a great choice, and it's going to be a great show. I should mention that we do see Grievous and Thrawn in the trailer, so there's your obligatory fan service, but if they're going to play a part in the plot, then it's perfectly alright, I think. Especially for just a short animated series, I think it's fine for it to have fan service. I did have a few other smaller stories planned for today, but this episode is getting longer as is, so stay tuned for tomorrow's episode where we'll talk about the Among Us cast being complete now with a few more additions and other shit.
But you can't end a day off without saying that Legally Blonde is getting a spin-off. Yeah, well, I don't fucking care. Just make the spin-off Illegally Redhead, okay?
It'd be a fire pun, that's all that I can say about this shit.